Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new, and welcome to the very first Knit and Chat. So I wanted to start this series because, number one, I love knitting, and number two, it kind of gives me the opportunity to talk to you about just kind of whatever is on my mind. First, the project that I'm working on is going to be a baby blanket. This is kind of what it will look like as an end product. This is Penny's blanket that I made for her. But basically it will just be 3 color block sections. The back side looks like this, so you can see kind of how it's seamed together. Instead of those colors, it will be these colors. So I think this is going to be really cute. This is kind of where I'm at as far as my progress. This is super simple. I just knit every stitch. I'm not following a pattern. It's like the most basic knitting ever. So it's great for beginners to kind of get the hang of knitting and like get a knitting flow and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm making this for my sister's baby. She is due at the end of March with a little girl, which is going to be so much fun. I'm so excited. So as I was thinking about what I kind of wanted to talk about with these knit and chats, a few things came to mind, but kind of the one that was been most pressing was my postpartum experience and what I learned from it and what I wish that I had known, I guess, and what I will keep in mind for the next time that I'm ready to have a baby. So just as a quick recap, if you're new to my channel, I am 20 years old. My daughter Penelope is 4 months old. She just turned 4 months old last week, which is crazy. And I had a fairly uncomplicated birth. I had an induction and an epidural, and I had a great time giving birth. If you're curious about my full birth story, I will link it in the cards and the description box because I made a whole dedicated video to that. Anyway, I had a very great birth experience, and Penelope was healthy and happy, and she has been such a good baby. She is so happy. She's such a good girl. So then going into my postpartum experience, the physical recovery wasn't going to be too difficult for me because I had very, very minimal tearing, and I didn't have any of those complications at birth. So physically, recovering was pretty good for me. The biggest thing that I struggled with was breastfeeding, and here's where it comes in my first thing, I guess, that I've learned or that I wish that I knew, which is that it's okay to ask for help and it's okay to ask questions. I struggled with breastfeeding so much because I didn't know if I was doing it right. I didn't know if she was getting enough milk. I didn't know why I was in pain, because breastfeeding hurt really bad for me. Everybody says it's not supposed to hurt, but nobody talks about like the initial pain of learning how to breastfeed, and like how when you're getting used to it, like the initial latch can hurt really, really bad. And maybe that's not supposed to happen, and maybe that was the issue. But I think I just mostly struggled with getting her to latch correctly, and a big thing for me was that I felt this kind of fear and insecurity. Fear and insecurity that I should know how to do it because I'm a mom now. And I know that that doesn't make sense and that that's illogical, but that's kind of how I felt. I was like, I shouldn't be asking questions on how to do this because I'm a mom and I should know how to do it. And I had this baby and I'm her mother. I should know how to do it. And that's very silly. I mean, it's a valid feeling to feel, but that doesn't mean that it's real or that it's true. Because yes, I am her mom, but that doesn't mean that I know everything. And it wasn't like in a braggy way that I was like, oh, I'm so smart, I know how to do all these things. That means that I should just automatically know. But more like, if my thought was, if I ask somebody for help and ask them how do I do this, then they're going to think that I'm an unfit mother, which is really silly, but that's how I felt. So, going into my next pregnancy, whenever that happens, I want to try and keep that in mind, that it's okay to ask questions, it's okay to ask for help, and it's also okay to change your plan. I really wanted to breastfeed, and I wanted to breastfeed for at least 6 months. I breastfed for 1 month. And that's just the way that it worked. Switching to formula was better for us. It helped me mentally a lot, knowing that my husband could help feed her, especially at night, because those night feedings were really, really emotional for me. And they were really difficult because I knew that I was the only one that could feed her. And even if I needed a break, even if I was feeling sick or tired or whatever, I had to do it. And so that was really hard for me mentally. I wish that I would have known. And going into, things being difficult mentally, the next thing that I learned that I'm trying to continually keep in mind, it's something I have to remind myself of a lot, is that everything is a season. It will pass. And that's something that people say a lot. I know that it's kind of cheesy, but it's true. Along with that, just because something is a season doesn't mean that that season doesn't suck or that it might be really hard. And just because it's a season doesn't mean that you can't feel terrible about it and want it to be over. Because I tried really hard not to wish away any of the time that I was experiencing with my daughter, especially in the early days, because I was like, I know that these first 2 weeks or first month or whatever, I won't have it again. This is a very special time in our lives. I don't want it to just be over, but that doesn't mean that it wasn't really hard, and that doesn't mean that there wasn't also a lot of happiness that went with it. That's something I'm still trying to remind myself of because, I had Penelope at the beginning of October. I live in Idaho in the United States, and it gets pretty cold here. The winters are long and harsh. And so I had probably a solid 2-3 weeks after giving birth that it was nice enough outside that we could go outside. Which, we could go outside now, but we would have to really bundle up. But go outside comfortably. And then the snow hit and the really cold temperatures hit. And this year has been a particularly cold year. It hasn't gotten this cold in a while. So having the seasonal depression feels on top of postpartum can be really difficult. And that's something that I still have to remind myself of sometimes every day. Like, this is just a season. It will pass. It will be okay. We'll get through it. Everything will be fine. I'm okay. So that's just something that I think is important. It is cheesy. And if you're going through a hard time right now, especially postpartum, and everybody's telling you it's just a season, it is. It's just a season. You will get through it. But that doesn't mean that it's not hard, and that doesn't mean that your feelings aren't valid, because they are. So I guess it's kind of twofold. That knowing that everything is a season, and that my feelings are still valid in that season. The last thing that I learned that I think was the most key for me was nutrition is so important. And I learned this the hard way. Just as like a little backstory, I've kind of always struggled with eating and eating enough and knowing what to eat. When I was a teenager, I had a lot of appetite problems. I have an autoimmune disorder called POTS. And it made me pass out, it made me really dizzy and stuff, and it made me lose my appetite. And I had a hard time wanting to eat. So when I was pregnant, I had a lot of appetite, and I ate a ton, and it was awesome. I gained the weight that I needed to gain. Postpartum, I'd be hungry, but it was like, okay, I'm hungry, but I need to feed Penny, and I'm tired, and maybe I should do this, but I need to rest, and I didn't really know what I was doing, what to do with my time in between feeds, and then, whoa, she just woke up. If she needed to be fed, then it was like, well, I have to feed her, I can't eat right now. Because of that, I had really horrible nutrition, and I was basically just living off of, like, protein bars, and that was it. That resulted in me having seizures, which I want to say this little disclaimer. I'm not saying that if you don't eat correctly or if you don't eat super healthy that you're going to have seizures postpartum. I think that's a pretty rare thing that not very many people have. It's something that happened to me, and I want to tell you about it because I learned something from it, but I don't want to scare you. I'm not saying that you're going to have seizures if you don't eat your fruits and vegetables. Um, but I did. So 6 weeks postpartum, I basically hit my 6 weeks and started having seizures. I had seizures for about a week. I went to the emergency room twice because I was seizing uncontrollably. I had a bunch of tests done. I had an MRI, I had an EKG, or not an EKG, sorry, an EEG, and went to a neurologist, and basically all that they found was that they were like, these aren't epileptic seizures, which means that what we think it is you're low in nutrients from having your baby. And so I was not supporting my body. I was not supporting my body in breastfeeding, and once I stopped breastfeeding, I wasn't supporting my body in making my milk supply drop and just continuing forward as a human being. So yeah, I learned the hard way that nutrition is very, very important postpartum. And I had heard people say, you know, like, oh, make freezer meals and stuff like that. And I was like, yeah, okay. But then when the time came around to it, I was like, I don't really want to eat this. You know, lasagna doesn't sound good to me right now. That was the freezer meals that I had. Or, you know, I was like, this doesn't sound yummy. I don't want to eat that. Whatever. I need something right now. I'll just have a protein bar. It's fine. And then I just want to eat something after that. So, what I learned from that is that preparation is very important in the sense that it's important to know what snacks work for you. The protein bars worked for me as a snack, and they were helpful, and so I don't think that that's something that I should like cut out, I should have cut out, but not relied on that only specifically. And then also just preparing meals that are easy to make as well as freezer meals, or if you don't like freezer meals, then don't make freezer meals, and just figure out meals that are easy to make. That way you know what you want to eat. Because my husband would be like, hey, what do you want me to make you? And I'm like, I don't know, just hand me a protein bar. You know, because it's like, I have no idea what I want to eat right now. I don't want it to take a super long time, stuff like that. So this is something that I'm still really trying to work on, and I'm definitely not perfect at it. Like today, I mean, it's 4 o'clock and I just ate lunch, so that's not ideal, but something that I learned that is helpful for me and might be helpful for you is that I've been putting fruits in glass jars and putting them in the fridge, so that if I want a snack or I want, you know, just easy access, I have like a portioned amount of fruit that's easy to eat. My mother-in-law does that, and every time I went to their house, I was like, wow, I'm actually eating these fruits and vegetables and stuff because they're just so easy. It's right there. All I have to do is, you know, run out to the fridge and grab one and I'm good. So shout out to her for teaching me that, I guess. And so that's something that's been helping me a lot. And then I think, you know, just figuring out what foods you like, and even if you have to start, you know, I kind of had to start with not necessarily like eating the most healthy foods all the time, but just eating in general. Even if it was not like the most superfood packed meal or whatever, just having a meal. And then working on making those meals healthier as I go. And that's just a continuing process. But that's something that I'm really going to keep in mind, you know, moving forward when I want to have another baby, is putting time into that food preparation. And that's something that I'm really trying to work on now, especially as Penny gets older, because she's going to be starting solids soon. I mean, she ate a little bit of avocado today, but she mostly spat it out. But as she starts to eat solid food and not just milk, it will be really important for me to teach her what foods are healthy and how to, you know, make yummy meals and stuff like that. So that's a priority for me because I don't want her to have a negative relationship with food, especially as a young woman, because that can be really, really difficult. Thank you for chatting with me. If you were also knitting while we had this little chat, tell me what projects you're working on. If you don't know how to knit, that's okay. If you have had a baby and you had any similar experiences, or you had different experiences, tell me about your postpartum life and how it's going. And I hope to see you in the next one. Bye!